Hello, hello, and welcome to Break Check, your one-stop shop for Rocket League Championship Series coverage and discussion. My name is Hoodyhooo. I'm the host, and today we're going to be talking about North American Regional number 3. Now, this was going to be a fun episode because there was a lot on the line during this regional. We had implications for the major, the first LAN in 2 years. All right, 2 full years. So, like I said, today's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to jump right into it. And the first thing that I want to talk about today is the Closed Qualifier. Now, we're going to keep it short and sweet here because we got a lot to talk about once we get into the main event. But Closed Qual, let's look at it. So, the first thing that stands out to me, or not stands out to me, but is important, I think, is we got some, even in the third regional, we have some new faces. Oxygen, first appearance in a regional. Pittsburgh Knights, Regional 1, they miss out. They make another roster change. They made a roster change in the offseason. They picked up Alpha Kep. And they picked up Alpha Kep in place of ZPS. And then after Regional 1, they failed to qualify. They picked up Omar Maton in place of Rodoko. And they actually missed out on Regional number 2 as well. But now in Regional 3, they've made their first appearance. And then we also have Accelerate making their first appearance in a regional. And we have Charlotte Phoenix, who made Regional number 1. They missed out on number 2, and now they are back for Regional number 3. The big one, though, Oxygen. This is a team that I think a lot of people had, not super high expectations by any means, but I know I certainly expected them to be in the regionals. I didn't think they would miss out on the first 2. Very talented team, very mechanically gifted, and all I can say about it is I'm excited that they were able to turn things around and get into this regional number 3, and we'll talk about them a little bit more when we get to the main event, but they performed very well, so props to them. The next thing that we want to talk about in regard to the closed qualifiers is the fact that both Torrent and Sonics missed out this time. Those two teams, they were present for both Regional number 1 and Regional number 2, and they ended up missing this third regional here. We got a couple other names that we've seen. Devious, we saw them in Regional number 1. They missed out. We saw RBG in Regional number 2. Now they've missed out. Rebellion, we know that situation. Unfortunate. They have missed out yet again. So, like I said, we're going to keep it short and sweet with the closed qual. Oxygen 3-0, Vibrance 3-0. Two teams that, I think they took some time to get rolling, but both of those teams, I'm not surprised by the 3-0 performance. Then we got PK and Accelerate, both first-timers with a 3-1. Ghost with a 3-1, no surprise there. Ghost has been a mainstay in the regionals. I think Ghost is kind of solidifying themselves in that 7 through 10 spot in North America. And then we got 3, E-United, Charlotte, and Rogue barely squeaking in. And to be honest with you, this is kind of what these teams have done throughout this split. So, hey, as long as you make it in, that's really all that matters. So let's jump into the main event. Let's take a look at how that unfolded. The main event was a lot of fun. This is probably the most predictable of the 3 regionals that we've had. We had a couple of games here and there, a couple matches that went a little sideways, but overall, I mean, look at this. We've got NRG number 1 in points. We got G2 number 2 in points. We got FaZe number 3 in points, right? Then we got Space Station, Envy, Complexity. Boom, boom, boom. That's how things should unfold, right? That is the typical manner that you would expect results to unfold for North America. But like I just mentioned, Oxygen, the first appearance, boom, top 8. Top 8. That's very impressive. Well done. Then we got Ghost with another top 8. Good for them. So, again, this is a Swiss stage. Nothing too crazy. I do want to mention that, obviously these teams failed to make it to top 8, but we got some stuff to talk about with this. The first thing is Version 1. Version 1 was in the race for that 5th spot. They were tied with Space Station and Complexity and Envy. And I think XZ is right behind them. And Version 1, like they were within striking distance. They could have qualified for LAN, and we show up and drop a bomb. We lose to Rogue. And no disrespect to Rogue, but version 1 should not be losing to that team. We get swept by Oxygen. This is a first appearance in a regional. And you heard me talk about it. I think Oxygen is better than their results indicate, but still getting swept. That is not good. And then Accelerate, another team, first appearance. Version 1, this is so disappointing. And I know that the players feel the same. This is so disappointing. They have done so well throughout the first 2 regionals of the fall split. They got themselves a top 4 performance, and we've heard many people talk about the good fortune with the playoff bracket. They had to be X-set in the quarters to get to semis, which gave them a top 4. And then they had a top 8 finish in regional number 2. They're within striking distance. They like I said, they could have qualified for LAN, and we just lay an egg right here. This is very disappointing. We look up here, X-set. Again, another team within striking distance. I think they would have had a tough time. I think they're probably going to have a top 4, maybe even a top 2 finish to solidify things. But again, not able to make it happen when it counts. 1-3 Ghost, swept by FaZe. We take down Vibrance, nice win there. And then we get beat in Game 5 by PK, another first-time appearance in a regional. These 2 teams, they had fought so hard, like I said, to put themselves in a position where they could actually achieve attendance of the first LAN. They could make that first fall major. And then Regional 3 rolls around, and we just don't perform up to the standards that these 2 teams have set for themselves throughout the fall split. So that was very disappointing. I do hope that both of these teams will be able to take this and learn from it, even if it's not on the field performance-wise. Learn from that experience of being in a high-pressure situation where everything matters and you got to show up on the day. So, like I said, disappointing performance from these 2 squads in regional number 3. I want to give a shout to a couple of squads, though. We got PK with their first regional. This is their first time making it in, and they start things off hot, taking down FaZe 3-1. That's a very good win. And then we take Ghost to Game 5. I know we lose there, but that's a great match. That's a great series. Again, first appearance. We end up going down 0-3. Oxygen sweeps, and it looks like Oxygen is just off to the races, right? And then we take X-set to Game 5, and we beat them. X-set, again, I just talked about them. They've had pretty good results throughout this split. And then we fall 0-3 to Complexity. So PK, big shouts to them. First regional, they make some noise, almost qualify for top 8. I know we end up getting swept here, but they're in round 5. Some of these other teams, they're not in round 5. So big shouts to PK. And my boys, E-United. I was fortunate enough again to broadcast them on this day 1, this Swiss stage. And E-United made an offseason roster change that I think a lot of people were skeptical about. Many of them were very vocal on social media about the move. They pick up Savvy Seal, and they failed to make Regional 1. And, it's tough, especially when you're facing all kinds of criticism. It's tough to bounce back from that. In Regional 2, they qualify, and unfortunately, they go 0-3. Not a great performance. One of the first teams eliminated in Regional number 2. Now in Regional 3, we're seeing strides forward, right? They fail to qualify Regional 1. They qualify to Regional 2, but they have a poor performance. And then Regional 3, here we are. And you want to talk about a tough road, right? I mean, goodness gracious. You want to talk about a tough road right now. They start with Envy, and they take down Envy in Game 5. Absolutely incredible performance from E-United to do that. Envy's a freaking awesome team, man. They're very consistent. They don't make many mistakes. If you're going to beat them, you have to cause the issues, right? You have to create space. You have to create opportunities because they're not gonna make mistakes and give it to you. We have NRG, and we end up falling 0-3. And then round 3, we get FaZe, and they fall 1-3. Now, it's very easy to face Envy, NRG, FaZe, and get frustrated. You get frustrated with the cards that you've been dealt, but these players don't do that. They keep their head on straight, and they bounce back, and they take down Rogue in round number 4. They take down Rogue 3-1. That was a very dominant series. And then we go to round 5, Oxygen, game 5, overtime. And I'm talking about, this is a back-and-forth series. Like I said, I had the pleasure of casting and broadcasting for E-United. This was a fight right here, and Oxygen end up taking it in overtime of game 5. So, like I said, I wanted to give a couple shouts to PK and E-United. Great performance there. I did not get to watch Charlotte, but another pretty solid performance here. We make it to round 5. We end up losing to, the top 8 teams, but they're competitive matches. This is something that we've talked about throughout some of the previous episodes, where when you are a team that is in that, 10 to 16 range, or even 10 to 20 range for North America, you can't expect to win every series. You can't expect to take down these top 5, top 6, top 7 teams. But what you can do is you can start to take games off of them. You can make the series, make the matches competitive. And that's what CLT did right here. They take Complexity to 5. They take Space Station to 5. They take wins over other teams that are around their level, that are qualifying in, but that are falling into that 9 through 16 spot. And then they end up falling to Ghost in round 5. So, these 3 squads up here, great performance. They've got to take that and build some momentum on that, running into the winter split. XSET and V1, the inverse, right? Kind of poor performance. They did not show up when it counted, but I hope they can still take that and turn that into a little bit of desire, a little bit of fuel to perform better once the winter split rolls around. Now, let's jump into playoffs. Playoffs, things start to get interesting, because playoffs are where we start to solidify who is going to land. Now, right now, with the way things unfolded throughout Swiss, okay, NRG was, before the regional ever starts, NRG's already locked, right? NRG locked in the 1 seed. Now, we got G2 with the top 8 performance, G2 locks. FaZe with a top 8 performance, FaZe locks. So we got the first 3 spots solidified. NRG, G2, FaZe. So we got Envy, Space Station, Complexity, and V1, except V1 ended up falling out, so we can knock them out. We got 3 teams fighting for the last 2 spots. Like I said, we're jumping down into playoffs. So when we look at this, 2 of those 3 squads face off in quarterfinals. We got Envy and Space Station facing off in the quarterfinals to secure a LAN spot. So, big implications on this match. It goes to Game 7. Game number 1 is an 8-minute overtime. 8-minute overtime. And if that doesn't tell you how the series is going to unfold, I don't know what will. So they end up trading the first 3. Space Station take 1, Envy take 2, Space Station take 3, and then Envy take a couple in a row. Space Station bounces back, takes Game 6, and then on Champions Field, Envy take the series. So that clinches for Envy. They're going to lock in that 4th spot. Now, the fun is not over yet. The implications are not over yet. We look at NRG, a very handy or a very, I don't want to say dominant, but a very secure win here. We did not face much trouble with Ghost. We got G2 facing off against Oxygen. Again, we didn't find much trouble here at 4-1 for both of those teams, both of those series. NRG taking down Ghost and G2 taking down Oxygen. And then we come down to the final match, FaZe versus Complexity. Now, because Envy clinched over Space Station, there's only 1 spot. So, Space Station is sitting eliminated, and they're waiting and watching. If Complexity win this quarterfinal matchup, they will clinch the 5th spot. So Space Station is cheering on FaZe. They need FaZe to take down Complexity, and if FaZe takes down Complexity, there will be an NA tiebreaker for that 5th spot for the major. And as we can see with the results here, FaZe take them down in Game 7. Just like the Space Station Envy series, we got some overtimes to start things off. We got 3 overtimes throughout the entire series. And then FaZe end up taking them down in Game 7. So, the playoff bracket could not have shaken out in a better fashion for viewers. We got some high-intensity matchups in the quarterfinals. Things unfolded in a manner where we actually get an extra game to decide who that 5th seed for North America was. Incredible. Incredible. Super fun. It was it was just an absolute blast to watch. So let's jump to the semis. We got NRG and Envy, and this is a battle of the Titans here. You know, these teams trade series quite frequently, and NRG, as of late, seem to have had the upper hand. But Envy showed up, and they took it to NRG. They take them down 4-1. Really wasn't too threatening. Really wasn't too close. It just looked like Envy had their number this day. And then G2 straight 4-0 swept FaZe. I'm telling you right now, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, G2 look really good right now. They look really, really good right now. And then we got to talk about this final. In the regionals, we have a best of 7 set of 3. Okay, so what that means is you have to win multiple best of 7s to secure the championship. All right? That leaves us with a potential of 21 games. Okay, these players could play 21 games. And look here, we sure did. We played every single last one of them. Every single set goes to 7. G2 takes down the first set 4-3. Envy taking the second one 4-3. And then G2 takes the third. And this is just, it's poetry at this point. It's poetry at this point. We've got a G2 squad that is known for their high-power offense, great passing plays, offensive suffocation, and then we've got an Envy team that is known for fantastic defense, very efficient, very coordinated, fantastic rotation, very patient and calm. You know, the classic saying, unstoppable force meets immovable object, and that is exactly how the series unfolded. G2 were pounding the Envy net, and Envy, it seriously seemed like they had an invisible wall built inside of the goal. It was absolutely insane. If you did not catch that series, you absolutely should go back and watch it. Yes, it is a long series. Like I said, it went a full 21 games, but it is absolutely 100% worth your time. One of the best series that I have ever seen in my time watching RLCS. A couple things that we need to note about it is Envy in the third series actually had a 3-1 series lead. So Envy is leading in the series 3-1. All they need to do is take one game. And G2, with their back against the wall, do not allow another goal. They shut Envy out in the final 3 matches, 3 games. And, we want to talk about G2 for a moment. G2 is a team that, like I said, high-power offense. I think sometimes that strength is also their weakness. I think many times they are overly aggressive and they end up kind of exposing themselves on the backside of things, allowing for easy counterattacks. Many times when we flash back to regional number 2 and we look at G2 versus NRG in the finals, it seemed as though 50% of the goals were just walk-ins, right? G2 would be pushed up too far up the field. NRG one clear over the last defender, and then boom, they're walking in a freebie. something that was something that we did not see in regional number 3, or at least not as much. It seems as though G2 is starting to kind of find a balance between that full send, full pressure, high power offense, and then making sure that they do not allow easy counterattack goals. And that is something that I think is very important for that G2 team. You're not going to be able to stop teams from ever scoring, but you do need to make teams earn it. And when you're giving them freebies on counterattacks, they're not earning it, right? So that was something that I love to see from G2, a nice little improvement or adjustment or whatever you want to call it. I think the next thing is even more important, and it's the fact that G2 was challenged. G2 had they had a tough fight in the final. They had to stay mentally strong, mentally focused for 124 minutes. These teams were fighting for 124 minutes. And as I mentioned just a few moments ago, G2 actually fell down 3-1 in the final series, but they didn't stop. And I do want to say G2 has added a new coach, Sathu, to the roster, and you just have to think that he has helped in some form or fashion. You just have to assume we've got a better balance of offense and defense, right? We're not going too crazy, too ham on the offensive side of things. We've got fantastic mental tenacity, mental fortitude whenever our back is against the wall. Those are two areas that, in my opinion, as a previous coach, I think that's something that a coach can help with tremendously. So big shout out to G2. Big shout out to Sathu, the new pickup. And, I am somebody, I'm not going to say that I've been critical of Drees, but I have definitely been open to the aspect of the G2 roster potentially looking at making a change. I know many people have been very vocal about wanting a change or very vocal about not wanting a change or whatever. And that is, that's not for me or you or any other viewer to decide. That is for the G2 roster to decide. But the one thing that I want to say is that after this performance and Drees looking the way that he does right now and the G2 team looking the way that they do, the performance that they're bringing, I just can't imagine them entertaining a change anymore. Like I said, I have been somebody that I have talked about. I could understand the G2 roster maybe entertaining a change. I don't think I could understand that any longer because of how G2 have looked throughout the fall split. So with that being said, congratulations to G2. And now we're going to move on to top 5 for North America. The 5 teams that are going to be representing the North American region when it comes to the major is happening in Sweden. One match, a best of 7 decides who makes it between Complexity and Space Station. Now, bear with me here because I want to talk about these two teams and their performance throughout this fall split, and I want to try to portray just how similarly they have performed. Okay, so here we go. Both teams finished with a single top 4 result and 2 top 8 results. All right, 1 top 4, 2 top 8s. Complexity dropped 1 series to a team outside of the top 5 throughout the entire split. That was Xset in a Game 5 where Percy hit a 0-second game winner. Okay? Complexity drops 1 series to a team outside of the top 5, and it's Xset who takes it in a 0-second Game 5 winner. All right? Other than that, Complexity falls to NRG and Envy during Swiss stages of Regional 1 and 3. Okay? They also fall to Space Station in quarters of Regional number 1. And then G2 in the semis of Regional number 2. And then they fall to FaZe in the quarters of Regional number 3. With a total of 8 games dropped throughout the split. All right? Let's jump over to Space Station. Space Station also only drops 1 series to a team outside of the top 5. That team being Ghost. This was also a Game 5, just like Complexity's loss. Okay? Both teams lose 1 time to a team outside the top 5, and it's in a Game 5. Space Station falls to G2 and Ghost in the Swiss stage of Regional number 2, and Complexity in a Game 5 during the Swiss stage of Regional number 3. Space Station had a perfect 3-0 Swiss stage in Regional number 1, and then during playoffs, Space Station fall to FaZe in Game 7 of the semis of Regional number 1, NRG in Game 6 of the quarters of Regional number 2, and Envy in Game 7 of Regional number 3. Space Station drop a total of 6 games throughout the split. To say that these teams were neck and neck would just be an understatement. Their performance throughout Split 1 was nearly identical, which is exactly why it comes down to this tiebreaker. Just like I said about the Envy G2 series, if you did not watch the Complexity Space Station tiebreaker, you need to go back and watch it. Of course, it goes to Game 7. We wouldn't have it any other way. Of course it does. It starts off with Complexity taking the first 2. Space Station respond by taking 3 straight. And then Complexity close the series out, taking the final 2 games and secure their spot in Sweden, which, like I said at the top of the show, the first LAN in 2 years. I cannot imagine the elation from that team. And on the flip side of that same token, I cannot imagine the despair from Space Station. My heart goes out to those players. Even though this is only a major throughout the entire season, it's just one major. We got 2 more. We got Worlds. This is a special LAN. And as outsiders, as viewers, as people that are not professional players, I don't think we can fathom how much that means to these players. So my heart goes out to the Space Station squad. I truly hope that they can take this frustration, this sadness, this disappointment, and I hope they can use it as fuel to drive themselves to perform better in the future. And I think they will. That is kind of the sentiment that I get from that team and that mentality, the mentality of that team. When they fall short, they seem like a team that have each other's back and pick each other up, and they work harder to perform better in the future. Again, I feel for the Space Station squad, but we're going to move forward from that, and we're going to talk about Complexity. I mean, what an incredible story. If you are not familiar with this Complexity team, they were a South American team in RLCS under the banner of True Neutral, and they were absolutely dominant in their region. Absolutely dominant in the South American region. They decide they want to prioritize improvement. They want to prioritize becoming a better and more threatening team. So they leave South America, move to Mexico. That way they can compete in the North American region. Now, that takes an incredible amount of courage and confidence. They left the South American region where you can essentially say they're guaranteed a major spot. In South America, if they get top 2, they're going to be at the major. But they decided they wanted to leave that behind in favor of challenging themselves. They wanted to move to a more competitive region of North America and challenge themselves to see if they can push their boundaries and become a better squad. And I have the absolute utmost respect for that. Now, I want to show something real quickly because I thought this was special. We got a tweet here from RazeBull, and I'm going to read it out to you. This tweet is a screenshot of the North American points leaderboard leading up to the tiebreaker between Complexity and Space Station. It shows them tied at 500. RazeBull says, "We came to North America thinking that we would be a top 12 team. We are working hard to become the best team in the world. There is still a long way to go, but I wanted you to see our progress. Regardless of how we go on Tuesday, we will have fun and take it as an experience." I can't say enough positive about this team. I am an absolute, I can't even say fan, I am a stan. I am a Complexity stan. These guys, They did not take the safe and easy road of staying in South America, securing that that spot in major. No, they took the challenging road, the road less traveled, if you will, right? And they are expecting to or hoping to perform as a top 12 team. And what do? They shock the world. They're top 5. They qualify for the first LAN in 2 years after moving from South America to North America. I cannot say enough about this team. I am a Complexity stan. I wish them nothing but the best. And that's going to put a wrap on the fall split for North America. And I got to say, with LANs being back, there's a lot more for these teams to fight for. There's a lot more passion from the players, the squads, and even the fans. Something that I tweeted out is we watch this game, and I'm talking about everybody's doing watch parties. Pros from other teams, pros from other regions, right? Everyone is tuned in to a match that is going to decide 5th place. A match that is going to decide 5th place. And we got the whole world tuning in. You don't have that kind of passion when there isn't LAN, when there isn't major qualification spots on the line. Because look, in RLCSX, nobody cares who's 5th. It just doesn't really matter, right? It just doesn't really matter. But now that we got LANs back, it's the real deal. It's the real deal. And with that being said, that's going to conclude this episode of Break Check. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, peace.